After a week off, the Huskers are ready to get back to game day as they head to Indiana to take on the 16th-ranked Hoosiers. Tonight, we preview the matchup. Plus, we're joined by University President Dr. Jeffrey Gold, former linebacker Bo Ruud, plus Sean will be along with the recruiting update. It's time for Big Red Wrap-Up. Hi everyone, I'm Michael Severe and welcome to Big Red Wrap-Up on Nebraska Public Media. Nebraska's set to play Indiana, which is going to be a great game. We have a great show for you. Joining us, former Husker Jay Moore and Sean Callahan. How'd you spend your bye week? Besides watching a ton of football.
Watch a ton of football, play a little golf.
Of course.
You know, the weather's fantastic. You got to get on the golf course, get out early so you can watch the great games. Hung out with some family. It was nice to have a little stress-free, non-Nebraska football weekend, but I'll tell you what, I'm ready to get back at it again.
No doubt. What about you, Sean?
I negotiated with my wife. We went down to Kansas City.
That is right.
And I let them shop. I got barbecue, and I watched a lot of football. So it was a winning Saturday for our household.
Yeah, not to sponsor anything, but Q39?
Yeah, we went to Q39. That was our Saturday night spot.
That's pretty good. There's a lot to cover tonight, as we said, and we can't do it without you. We have our phone standing by, ready for your calls. Before, you can also text or email your comments to bigred@nebraskapublicmedia.org. We're also monitoring our social media accounts tonight. Send us your thoughts on the Big Red Wrap-Up Facebook page or X account, and we'll answer as many of the questions as we can. Time for our sideline survey. Last week, we asked you what range do you think Nebraska will finish in the Big Ten. As you can see, 3rd to 8th, the bowl bid, 58%, 14th to 18th, 28%. Those people want to be home for Christmas. And then you have 9th to 13th, 10%, and 1st or 2nd, 4%. Now, time for this week's all-new sideline survey. What do you think Nebraska's final record will be? Pretty easy, 6-6, 7-5, 8-4, or 9-3, or 10-2. We already have 2 losses. One loss right now. We don't want to include Ohio State. 44%, 8-4. I think that's about where we are. I'd like to introduce the president of the university system, Dr. Jeffrey Gold. We appreciate you taking the time and coming on with us.
It's a great pleasure to be with you. Really excited tonight.
So you just hit your 100 days a little while ago. Let's talk a little about how it's been and anything surprised you in this new job?
You know, after more than 10 years of being the chancellor at the Med Center, 4 years being the chancellor at UNO, and 3 years of being the provost and executive vice president, you'd think I'd have a pretty good idea about what the presidency of the university would be like. But I will tell you, the last 100 days has been absolutely amazing. The people I've gotten to meet, you know, I've crisscrossed the state over and over, and Nebraskans are so proud of this great university. And of course, we're winning, and that always helps.
Dr. Gold, you also now sit on the Big Ten Council of Chancellors and Presidents and represent Nebraska on that. How has that transition been to kind of represent Nebraska, and obviously a very big part of the university?
Well, it's a very important part of the job now, and it's really been a pleasure to work with Tony Petitti and to work with the Council of Presidents and Chancellors. You know, there's a lot going on, as I'm sure our audience knows, with all of the NIL negotiations and settlements, and that will have a profound effect on all of intercollegiate athletics, starting most likely this coming spring when contracts are going to be issued. And getting the presidents and chancellors together of the Big Ten is an important thing, and I think there's a lot of good cohesion right now.
Dr. Gold, one of the big conversations is about AAU and Nebraska getting back into it. Where are we now with that in the negotiations?
Well, the Association of American Universities, the AAU, is an elite group of 71 universities, 2 Canadian universities, 69 American universities, that UNL was a member of until 2011. And since that time, we've not been. And the focus now is trying to do everything we can to get back in. And the goal of this, the destination is academic excellence. And it's all about research productivity. It's all about awards and recognition of faculty. You know, I'm told, I just had several weeks ago a meeting in Washington with the executive director, and this could be as long as a 10-year process.
Wow.
And so, the clock is ticking, but it's not going to be tomorrow.
Gotcha.
Dr. Gold, you mentioned earlier NIL, revenue sharing, new steps are being taken to go into place for 2025. What steps has the athletic department and university taken to make sure Nebraska is in the best situation possible to attack and be at the top when those new rules come into play?
Yeah, well, I have a huge amount of respect and admiration for Troy Dannon. I think he's the right person at the right time to be our AD. He's working very closely with the Big Ten ADs, and they're very tightly aligned about this as well. But this is going to mean not only a retroactive settlement for the 5-year period, but it's going to mean revenue sharing for the future. The cap's going to be about $22.5 million. And it's going to require a very different mindset. It's going to essentially convert student athletes into employees, and they'll get 1099s and W-2s like anybody who parks cars and flips burgers does. And whether that's going to change the mindset, and whether there's going to be internal competition among and between the different Olympic and non-Olympic sports, whether or not the record keeping that compares us to our Big Ten peers or the SEC or other conferences produces a different type of competition. We're just going to have to see. The idea is to make it as transparent as possible and capped at that $22.5 million.
Go back to AAU for a second. You're chancellor at UNMC. How do you think that helps you when you're having this discussion and trying to get us back into AAU?
Well, most of the members of the AAU, about 57 out of the 71, have large academic medical centers as part of their university system, as we do. The only difference is we report them separately, because in 1968, when the system was created, each of the university entities, campuses as we now call them, were separate campuses. They were reported separately. And so starting last February, we started reporting them together. And that elevated our rankings in research and sponsored programs from about 120th to about 60th in the country. So that's a big change, and that's just as simple as combining reporting. So when we start to look at other things that we can report together, the role of the accrediting bodies and other entities of that nature, that'll give us a better idea of what it would take for the AAU to look at us as a single entity as opposed to 4 separate campuses.
How unique is this situation in terms of being a member institution that's been removed and trying to get back in, and how important is it when you look at your other peers in the Big Ten, the other 17 members are all in the AAU, and to get back in, to join back up at the same level with them?
Well, as you said, the other 17 members of the Big Ten are all longstanding members of the AAU. We are the only institution, to the best of my knowledge, that was actually dismissed by the AAU. Several have withdrawn rather than be dismissed. And if we are successful, in air quotes here, we will be the first to ever regain entry. And by the way, it's not an application process where you fill out the form, click send, and they know you're interested. It's by invitation only.
Dr. Gold, let's talk a little bit about alcohol sales. All the Big Ten other schools are doing that now. It's announced that Nebraska will soon have that as well in Memorial Stadium. Can you tell us how that would affect, and what are we talking about in terms of revenue?
Well, the revenues are just estimates, but it looks like it's going to be a multi-million-dollar revenue source. I know Troy has worked that through very carefully as he's in the process of looking for various concessionaires who would be the professional vendors of the alcohol sales. The data, which is very important to me as a physician, is really the safety data.
Yeah.
And there were some really excellent studies. One of the most recent ones was actually done at Iowa the year before and the year after they started selling alcohol, which is predominantly beer and spritzers, let's say. And they actually showed reduced number of emergency room visits. They showed a reduced number of alcohol-related incidents in the stadium, which, by the way, just to give you a rough idea, the audience might not even appreciate this. You look at all the events that occur in a typical game, anywhere between 5 and 6%, maybe 7% are related to alcohol. And the good news is that this should suppress the binge drinking,
right.
And that is the key to this, because that's what causes your DUIs, that's what causes your ER visits, etc.
Let's stick on the stadium, the Memorial Stadium. Nebraska, they were in the process of getting South Stadium redone. Obviously, that was put on hold. We talked to Troy Dannon back in May about the next step here. Where are things at with that next step? And we knew what the first one was going to cost. It was, I believe, $450 million was what was listed on the Regents meetings back then.
Yep.
I mean, what is a realistic number that you think it's going to take to do this project, at least at the first phase?
Well, I can't really give you a number because I don't know it. But I do know this, that Troy is working really hard looking at different sequences of the East Stadium, the West Stadium, the South Stadium, et cetera, scoreboards, playing field transition. You may have seen just last Board of Regents meeting, we're converting the practice fields, which will be a really big deal for us as well. But I'm hoping that Troy will have a better understanding of the sequencing, the timing, and the scope of the projects section by section, probably by this time next year, I hope, maybe sooner. I know he's got a third-party consultant that he's working with that has done a lot of important stadium work. But I think credit to Troy and the team, we need to get into this NIL settlement and have a better understanding of where we are from a cash flow perspective. We want to keep as much dry powder as we can, look going into the stadium project. I mean, clearly, parts of it have to be done. Maybe even all of it has to be done. But how fast, in what sequence, time will tell.
Dr. Gould, I remember years ago, Alabama showing the increased amount of attendance, people signing up to go to Alabama when they started winning national championships. How important is the success of athletic programs, and especially football, to help the university overall?
There's no question that the success of the athletic programs in many ways are the front door to the university. But we also have to continue to compete and to win in the classroom, in the research laboratory. Let me tell you, students like to work with faculty members that are not just reading the papers and the textbooks, but that are writing them. Students like to know that there are Nobel laureates and there are highly recognized faculty members that are their mentors and their teachers and their coaches, et cetera. And so this is all a combined package around excellence. When I had my formal investiture back in early September, hard to believe it's more than a month ago, in the rotunda of the state capitol, I talked about an odyssey from excellent to extraordinary. And that's what we really need to be. And, we have every tool in the tool chest we need to do that. We have incredible loyalty of not just our fans, but of course every Nebraskan and many, many alumni. We have phenomenal facilities. We have an incredible student body. We have some of the best faculty in the world. We just need to put it all together and be rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, and now with your new job, you've been around the university and the athletics a lot more and the fan base. What are your impressions of just the fan base and how big of an asset that is when you sell what Nebraska is and its value in terms of the ratings it still receives and everything it still gets at the national level?
Well, I was, with the commissioner and the president of the NCAA in the president's box during the Colorado game, and both of them said that they had never seen an experience like that. I mean, the place was absolutely alive, as you know, and every fan knows. I've been on the field for every tunnel walk since I took the job. I've hosted countless people. I usually will hop from box to box during the home games, and have enjoyed doing the halftime show with Matt, which has been a lot of fun, and get to talk about interesting things. The fan base is huge, and supportive in every possible way. They're financially supportive, their loyalty, their energy levels, and I think that translates into wins.
Your thoughts on Matt Rhule heading up this program? Obviously, the football part is big, but he talks so much about being an educator and making sure the student athletes better when they leave here in their future. Your thoughts on having him as the head coach?
I think he's a rock star. I recently had an experience that would never make the headlines or the media, but I'll tell you just very briefly. He called me about a student athlete whose family was having a medical issue, and he wanted some advice and some connections in order to make some decisions about when the student should be back to be with his family and that kind of thing. And this was not just the conversation of a coach. This was a conversation of almost like a parent who has had incredible compassion for the student and really wanted to be sure that he was doing the right thing at the right time for this young man. It was impressive to me, but I'll tell you, every interaction I've had with Matt has been just like that.
Yeah. Let's talk about your game day routine. You mentioned jumping around with boxes. Is there a tailgate you go to? Is there a favorite thing you eat in Memorial Stadium? What's your game day like?
Well, I always do the President's Tailgate, which is really cool. We have 600 of our closest friends.
Yeah.
And what we've done this year is we've combined the Chancellor's Tailgate, the Athletic Director's Tailgate, and the President's Tailgate. So it is like massive energy level. And then I hop over to the stadium, usually take a group of people down for the tunnel walk and stand on the field and say hi to a lot of friends, and then pop up to the President's box, usually for the first half, I typically take down at least one runza, maybe a little bit more than that, and then do the halftime show, usually with Matt, and then usually spend most of the second half going from box to box, meeting with friends and colleagues and others.
One last one from Sean.
I'm curious, have you been able to really tour the new football facilities and in your thoughts on just seeing those, and do you get a chance to show a lot of your colleagues the new football facilities?
It is absolutely amazing. I have taken a tour. I had the opportunity to speak at the ribbon coating with T.O. and with others, and I can't believe there's a finer facility anywhere.
Dr. Gold, we really appreciate you taking the time and coming on with us.
It is my pleasure. Have me back sometime.
No doubt, definitely. It's time to get to the top plays from the first half of the season. Let's go. Number 10, sideline headset spike by Coach Rule against Purdue. I don't know if this is a highlight, but although this happens here after the block in the back, and he throws the helmet, throws the headset and gets the penalty, but after that, it's fine. They got a first
The
down.
play after that
Yeah.
is worth that. The screen pass.
Exactly.
To
Yes.
Emmett, that was a fantastic
that was
play.
perfect. Number 9, freshman sensation Carter Nelson scoring his first Husker TD against Northern Iowa. His first touchdown in 11-man football, which is crazy to think about. Number 8, John Bullock's fourth quarter pick 6 to seal the win over Purdue. This was huge both for the team and for John Bullock. What an
He's having an amazing year.
incredible. And then at number 7, Sierra Wright is going to make the list. Strip sack, of course, of Shedeur Sanders. This was a huge play in the game. Oh, no, this is not Shedeur Sanders.
Luke
Of course,
Altmaier.
Luke Altmaier. I'm reading the script and not looking at the video. Yeah, great, huge play there. Brian Buschini, though, makes the list. He could make a bunch of different lists for this, but great pass, 30-yard pass for the first down and kind of extending the drive a little bit. Number 5 starts with the game-winning, actually, yes.
Game-saving.
5-play stop here at the goal
This
line.
is my number 1.
Yeah, I think that was incredible. That really turned the season. Anything could have happened after that. Let's go to number 4 and our good friend, Ja'Cory Barney. We love watching Ja'Cory Barney and this place and his run against Purdue. So many big plays for him so far in the first half of the season. At number 3, Ramir Johnson against Colorado. This would have been an interception, one of the few turnover-worthy plays for Dylan Raiola early, but catch happens, runs into the end zone, knocks off the Buffaloes. What a huge play in that one. Number 2, Isaiah Nair's top tap catch for the score against Illinois on a pass that Dylan Raiola may have been trying to throw away. You know,
May not have.
give him
but
credit
yeah.
for making a heck of a play there. And then the top play, the first half, comes from Tommy Hill with the help of John Bullock. John Bullock does his job. Tommy Hill does his job. The pick 6 against the Heisman candidate to win 28-10. Huge play there. For you, your number 1 would have been?
Pick 6, Tom Hill's pick 6. I mean, all those plays in the first half of that Colorado game, that was the best half of football Nebraska's put together
Yep.
in a long, long time. I love that goal line stand against Rutgers. I mean, that was just fantastic. After the second block punt, I love Deshaun Singleton's ability to get over the mesh routes and not getting rubbed off there and coming over and making that play.
Learn from mistakes, right?
After they struggled with that against Illinois, that was big-time football that defense showed in that stage.
How about you, Sean?
Well, for me, the goal line stand, because of what it defines, it's a bigger picture. Nebraska is the only defense in college football that has not allowed a rushing touchdown this year.
Incredible.
And that goal line stand showed that is not a fluke. I mean, Rutgers had, 5 cracks to get in there from that situation, and they could not get in the end zone, even with the leading rusher in the Big Ten Conference. So for me, it was the goal line stand and just the big picture of what that meant.
Yeah, even with the penalty call, because they had the holding call that gave them an extra set of downs, you watch that and the way they handle that. But this is something we've seen from this defense for 2 years now.
They get put in
Did they Illinois as well?
Yes, tons of tough situations in the goal. I mean, I looked at that Northwestern game last year.
Yep.
I mean, second play of the game against Northwestern, they throw a pick, right? Hold them to a field goal. And they may miss a field goal, but numerous times, Northern Illinois last year, again, they fumbled, Nebraska's offense fumbles the ball inside their own 10. They go for on fourth, don't get it. This is not normal to be able to do this, but their ability after a quick change, usually holding a team to 3 points after a quick change, that's a win for the defense. But they've held them to 0 points in a lot of these situations. So the ability to not care about momentum, what the situation is, and just go out and play and operate as the play is called that's big time football. And Tony White's got them playing really good football at this time of year.
And this is not one play, but just the play overall of Dylan Raiola. As a true freshman, going out there and operating this offense the way he has.
And, the wind conditions in that Rutgers game really affected the throwing, but he still made the most of it, especially in the first half. And I think if he would have finished that day with a big finish, and I think we're looking at it even bigger than what it was, but he has played above serve at this point. When you have a true freshman to get what he's given you already, you look at the completion percentage. He's going to challenge for the school record for completion percentage in a season, and he's got a chance to have one of the best freshman seasons at quarterback we've ever seen.
And the number on that last graphic, 4 turnovers, which is remarkable thinking where Nebraska was last year. That's a big part of what he's doing too, taking care of the ball.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge part of how this team's had success through the first 6 games.
Yeah.
Is his ability to take care of the football and the defense ability to get back in his hands.
Yeah.
That was a bugaboo of this team last year. The amount of times they shot themselves in the foot, it wasn't interceptions, it was just ball handling, just getting a simple snap. He does the simple things right, and that's where you start off, and that's what's most impressive about Dylan Raiola is his ability to look calm in all these situations and do the little things and the simple things correctly. He makes a ton of tough throws, but his ability to throw a nice screen ball, a nice, just a simple pass. I mean, that pass right there, you see the screen pass, fantastic, right? The arm angle and getting the angle to get it there. Haven't had a quarterback that's able to make those simple throws in the short intermediate passing game in a long time.
Sean, we wouldn't normally be talking about this. We haven't. We're the 3rd left tackle from what they expected coming in. That's both offensive line, coaching, and the fact that Gunnar Gattulla stepped in and did what he's done.
You're right. I think if you would have told me, Michael, they'd be at Gunnar Gattulla right now because of the situation, I'd be really worried. But it has not been a liability at all. He has at least, played at a serviceable Big Ten level. I mean, no one's expecting him to be an all Big Ten level left tackle in his first action, but he has not been a liability. He's held strong. And I think, Nebraska has schemed smartly too. I don't think they're putting him in tough situations where
helping him.
They help him with the back or a tight end. So I think they know the situation and they've managed it really well. And Turner Corcoran and Teddy Prohaska were both veteran guys that he had to step into. And when those guys went out with the injury, oh man, they would be in a lot of trouble. And they've been able to not make that a liability at this point. Now it's going to get tough the next few weeks because Indiana's got an elite edge rusher. Ohio State, we know, has got plenty of USC. So it's going to pick up a lot for that left tackle.
No doubt. Thanks. We appreciate it. We're going to get to, let's talk about what's happening coming up. We are going to have Bo Ruud join us, talk about the other side of the ball. We're going to do that. But before we do that, Hurrdat Sports, some great picks from the Black Shirts from the first 6 games of the season. We're back next.
It's Bo in
so far for the Black Shirts, only giving up a little over 11 points a game, ranked 7th in the country. A good point of view on the defense, of course, is Jay Moore, but also we bring in his former teammate, Bo Ruud, former linebacker at the University of Nebraska. Got the Ruud in here. And also two-time state champion for Lincoln Southeast as well. Welcome. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
What do you weigh now?
200, just flat.
What'd you weigh when you played at your heaviest?
I think I touched 235 to 240 once.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't all good weight. It was a lot of pizzas and late nights at on O Street that don't do any favors.
And the Coach K strength program as well. All
man.
those squats and lunges and
It's all
bench
heavy
press.
weights and not maybe enough.
Your
running
body
or something.
appreciates not having that extra 40 pounds.
I
on it.
bet.
A few
Yeah.
pounds less.
So just give us your overall feel of the way the defense played so far.
I mean, I think it's been really good, right? So if you're grading this defense, I mean, we had pretty high expectations, and I think it's hard to be disappointed if you take away a little bit of the Illinois game. Like it's a remarkable season. It's been great so far. So I think I'm still pretty optimistic. It's we got a hard stretch coming up here, but for the most part, like we've played really well at all levels. I mean, I was worried about the linebackers. John Bullock and Bayer, they've been better than expected.
Yeah.
The D line's been good, and we've had some like guys like Sierra Wright step up. Tommy Hill's been for a while better than expected even for me. So I've been very, very happy with their performance. Like sans maybe Illinois, where we kind of we got off kilter, but then again, like Tony White, he showed he can adjust, right? So that's also, I think, reassuring that like he's showing that he's not, somebody that's going to be maybe just figured out. He also has, some other tools in his toolkit to just like adjust and deal with the season as it goes.
Yeah, when this 335 came out, Bo, I was like, gosh, I'm not familiar with it. And you look at back, old San Diego State tape or Rocky Long, all this, that coordinator. I'm like, how would I fit in this defense? Because we played in a 4-3 defense and under front, cover 6, right, quarter half. But I would probably play multiple positions. How do you think you would have fitted in this 3-3-5 scheme?
I mean, it's hard to know exactly, but it seems like it likes athletes. So if you can, there's a lot more movement. So I think, if you're a guy that it's athletic and multiple, like they'll find a way to use you. So I mean, I think in the end, you'll find your place if you can do a few different things. And so that's how I see it. Is like I would like it because, hey, move me wherever you want to. So.
As a former in-state linebacker yourself, how much appreciation do you have for what John Bullock has done this year? And your brother Barrett was obviously around when he was here.
Yeah.
Has Barrett chimed in at all about what Bullock has done this year? Have you had a chance to visit with Barrett about Bullock?
Just a little bit. I think he's just very excited for him. He's just a hard-working kid that, if you're a walk-on that's moved positions and like, especially like he's gone from, walk-on safety to starting linebacker, but he's also he's getting better every week. The first couple weeks I was watching him close. Every week he's gotten better. He has that knack for not just making the play every time, but like he has the timing effect of like the instincts to go make a big time play. So super impressed with Bullock.
So Bo is also a member of the New Media. He does a podcast with, I believe, former All-State quarterback at Southeast. I believe he was All-State, right?
First team Super State.
There you go. So Nick Bob was that. You guys do a thing where who's in the club, right?
Yes.
The beginning, a lot of defensive players. How's the offense done getting into the club as we go along?
So the club is taking off on a life of its own.
Yeah.
But, so it was very defense heavy.
Yeah.
And we always do 5 guys can get in the club, and each week we update it. And then the offense made a little run there mid-season where we started bringing in guys, some of these receivers, but the shift is back. The defense is back. Holding. I mean, Dylan's in the club. Ty's in. Those guys are like their mainstays. They're in there. It's gonna be hard to get them out. But there's everybody else competing to get in. To
Is Buschini in the club yet?
Buschini was.
He's waiting on.
He
was
got
waiting
in
for his
on.
Uber.
It was bring your punter to the club night. So he was Buschini night at the club. So he got one
Punter night.
He doesn't get any other night.
He got to the velvet rope.
Yeah.
Somebody helped him get in.
It was punter's night. Yeah. So he got in.
Hey, Bo, I want to stick with special teams for a minute because you and I both played special teams as a starter. Nebraska has struggled they've struggled a lot this year in special teams. just talk about the mindset that you have to play special teams, because it's not for the faint of heart. It's
Yeah.
for lack of better terms, it's not a sexy job to have. It's a brutal deal to do, to have to be a starter and then go out there after you played a 10-series drive and also go out and punt block.
Yeah,
Or go out and punt, or you have to punt and then you have to go right into defense, right? It's a tough gig.
It's tough. I think it's not cut and dry. Just put your starters out there, because let's be real. We remember back when you're playing and like you're playing 60, 70, 80, 90 snaps a game. It's hard to give it all you got on special teams and do both, right? It's just you only have so many snaps. So at some point you do got to have other guys that can do it. I think I heard Matt Rule say something about this week where he was talking about maybe we've got too many young guys out there and maybe we need some more guys with experience, right? So I think that's also the give and take you got to find is, do you got some veteran guys that really know what they're doing and get them out there versus younger guys that maybe have more upside that you're trying to work into the flow of, the team and their first season. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think back to our time, and we had some veteran mainstays that were just like special teams guys. I think of the Ragonis, the Eisenhurts. That's what they did. They were special teams guys, and they made their living. That's all they wanted to do. And so I think we need to find a few more of those guys that become like, stars in their own right, just on special teams.
This is going to put you on the spot, but we've seen 6 games for Nebraska,
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of different players. I mean, is there a guy that you've gotten a taste of that you're like, man, I want to see more of that guy in the second half? It could be offense or defense. Is there a guy or two right now that jump out that you hope can have a bigger second half?
Just in terms, okay.
You have Hall of Famer Thomas Fidone. Remember?
I mean, Fidone, yeah, I mean, we want to see Fidone get the ball a little bit more, but that's tough. I think what I want to see is I want to see a running back emerge. We've been talking about the running backs, like somebody to just.
Who's your chip on right now?
Oh man,
It's hard. I know.
in a weird way, I still think maybe, I don't know, is Emmett Johnson is he the best player?
He's the most complete.
He's the most complete, but Rahmir probably has the most home run potential. I think they're looking for that. So
Yep.
I'm stumped on the running backs. I just want somebody to kind of step up and take that run game to the next level. Seems like that's even Matt Rule keeps saying, we need to see somebody like make somebody miss, break a tackle, take the 5 to 10 yarder, take it to the house. That changes games for us. It changes our run game. So I think I want to see a running back emerge, and then the offensive line. I want to see one of my big thing is when the game gets on the line, can we protect, right? Can we protect Dylan in the clutch? Like people talk about clutch as, hey, can the QB throw it to the receiver? I want to see can the O-line protect the QB in the clutch. That's what I'm looking for in any of these close games.
Yeah, he's been pressured 33% of the time of dropbacks, which is not great. Let's talk about this game against Indiana. It's really a bring your keys game. A lot of RPO, a lot of quick screen. Talk about being a linebacker in a situation where you don't know if he's giving the ball, you don't know if he's running. It's tough going against this Indiana offense.
Yeah, it's there. In a way we might match up decent because at 3-3-5 it allows you to play against the finesse teams and a little bit better. But it is going to be eye heavy. You got to have your keys and you got to just do your job, which is like if this is your guy, you can't get lost in the junk traffic. I think Jay mentioned the Illinois game. Like they're doing a lot of play action, across, tight ends across the field. Around the goal line, we lost our eyes, right?
Yep.
We didn't know who we were supposed to see. And in the end, if you got strong eyes, strong keys, that's what it's about.
I think you could look at last year against Michigan. That was a 4th game defense. Michigan was the best team by far last year, so a bit of an anomaly. A little sloppy. They improved, got some things figured out.
Yeah.
Illinois was the 4th game this last year. Got exposed a little bit, but seemed to kind of get things figured out with Purdue and Rutgers. What do you see the tweaks and adjustments from the defense from Illinois to Purdue to Rutgers that gives you some hope, right? I'm not saying as we're in dire needs, but just like, ooh, that looks different, that looks better, this is what needs to happen.
I mean, I'm no expert on the 3-3-5, so I don't even want to pretend like that. But just watching Tony White's adjustment from Illinois to Purdue, it looked, there were some things we were doing that I was like, he's putting our guys in position to make plays. Like it didn't feel like we got out schemed at all, right? It was like, we felt like, ooh, did we get a little schemed against Illinois? It felt like Tony White came back adjusted and we were kind of had the upper hand. We weren't playing on our heels anymore. It gave our guys the ability just to say, hey, we're in the position. They knew what they were doing. Felt like that was a really good adjustment game for Tony White to show that, yeah, this is what we can do. Okay, you do this, we can adjust and we can counter you.
Mm-hmm. Your brother Barrett is in the NFL now, coaching with the Falcons.
Yeah.
How much does he like coaching in the NFL? Because when he got into college football, it changed a lot with NIL.
Recruiting.
I mean, he sometimes says he can't believe how good the schedule is. He says it's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing schedule for the coaches.
Yeah.
It's, the recruiting, there's a lot that goes into college. It's a harder job to be a college football coach, right? Now the difference is the NFL, it's the not for long league, right? Yeah. It is the league that is every week. I mean, it's like been a one possession game every week for him. It's been a coin flip. So you got to be on your stuff every week, and there's a lot that can go right or wrong, and you got to have a quarterback in that league. And it's been a fun start to their season. They've done pretty darn well.
Speaking of having a quarterback, so you're a veteran on a team. Here comes a freshman hotshot, 5-star quarterback.
Yeah.
He's a leader. Can you talk a little bit about how different that kind of is than it normally is?
You got to be a rare person to come in as a freshman and earn a leadership role. I mean, it seems almost unthinkable, but it seems clear that it's real here. And we've got a guy he's a rare one. He's a special kid. But that's not normal, right? It's usually, that takes years. You got to prove it, year in, year out to earn that. But if you're good enough and you have the right mindset and you come and work, I mean, this guy, he has it and he's showing.
A little different than Harrison Beck coming in, right?
Hey, I don't want to make TikTok.
Corey McEwen's favorite.
Yeah. So, but Dylan's, like I say, you don't say that about many people, but we can say it about Dylan.
Yeah.
He's got it.
Got a prediction for the second half? Last 6?
Oh, I think we're in good shape. Ohio State's tough, but going to USC that's going to be a hard game as well. Being on the road, but every game seems. Other than that, I feel it'd be hard to bet against us in my mind. If we're playing our game, taking care of the football, playing. Strong eyes, physical defense, trying to run the ball like we should. I think we should do okay.
USC has struggled with physicality.
Yeah.
I mean, teams that have went straight at them has given them trouble.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota, that's a team that on paper they shouldn't win that game, but you know how Minnesota plays. They get those northern trees up there and they just lean on.
Shorten the game.
Yeah.
Yep, no doubt. Bo, we really appreciate it, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was great.
Good seeing you.
Yeah.
All right, up next on the wrap-up, Sean Callahan will update us on a possible flip from Alabama. But first, Herd at Sports has some great shots of Nebraska's good start to the season. We'll chat about Indiana when we come back after this.
Hey, good job, Bo. Thanks, guys. Yes.
Well, they're leading the Big Ten in passing, and at least they're close, if not the top in rushing. They're top 10 in the country in offense. They're top 10 in the country in defense. They're the only team that hasn't trailed all year. They've scored 80 points in the fourth quarter. So this is probably a top 10 football team we're facing, right?
Just because they operate so efficiently. They know exactly what they're doing, what they want to do. You got elements of the running backs. Remind me of Monangai at Rutgers. They run hard. They're physical. They're downhill. The tight end, the way they use their tight end, 44. He came over. Really unique. You'll see him out there at the number 1 in quads. He'll be in the box. He motions. They get him the ball. So they're elements of some teams all around, but just their efficiency on offense, how well the quarterback's playing. They got one of the best wide receivers there are. In the conference with 13. So again, they're a really, really good football team.
Yeah, they're top 10 defense in the Big Ten. A lot of great players. They play a lot of different schemes, and they're hard to kind of identify what they're doing, but it'll be a good test for us. Going to environment, big noon, the whole 9. Yeah,
Dylan dives into everything, bro. Dylan woke me up in my office this morning. He came in and banged, and I woke up that's him. He's here first thing in the morning. He's texting me. He's going away this week, and he's on the plane. He's like, hey, can you watch UCLA? He's watching the tape on the plane. Can you watch UCLA play 24?
He slept here, so he probably slept in a little more than he wanted to, but somewhere around I don't even remember. I walk in here and just walk in. I don't look at the clocks. I almost hit his head because he slept by the door, and I knocked, and I opened the door, and I hit something. And he was on the ground, so I was like, oh, I just knocked his head.
Oh, welcome back inside the Big Red Rap studio. Nebraska Public Media. I'm Michael Cerri with Sean Callan to talk recruiting. Potential flip, a big one for Nebraska?
Yeah, keep your eyes on Dawson Merritt. We've talked about him all season here on the show, and Matt Rhule went one place over the bye weekend. He was the only coach out with Rob Dvorak down in Kansas City to watch Dawson Merritt play on Thursday night. And, he still remains a commit to Alabama, but Merritt, was very impressed that Nebraska continues to recruit him. He's a priority. Alabama, is still having a good year by all intents and purposes, but I think this is something to continue to watch closely as we've seen it with Matt Rhule. He will not give up on a guy. Cade Pedshaw was, looking to go to Oklahoma, and Rhule won that battle to get him to Nebraska out of North Dakota. And, wouldn't surprise me at all if Nebraska, kept their name in this fight.
Makes sense. Let's get to our feature recruit.
Yeah, Sean Hammer back tonight, the number 1 ranked player out of the state of South Dakota. And I know that gets Nebraska fans excited, Michael, because you kind of want to, dominate the borders. You want to go into Colorado. You want to go into South Dakota. You want to go to North Dakota. Iowa's a little harder, obviously, with 2 other Power 4 schools there, Kansas, Missouri. Definitely. And Nebraska has gone in to the Dakotas, and they've started to clean up. Sean Hammerback, and we talked about, the receiver they just got last week out of South Dakota. So they have put themselves in a great position, and Sean Hammerback as a tackle fills a key position of need.
Yeah, and the name alone is an awesome name. In-state recruit.
Yeah, Henry Rayberg, and this is a guy obviously you're familiar with, sure. Michael, committed to Wyoming out of Millard North. The Mustangs are loaded right now. They have, 3 major Division I top 15 prospects in the state of Nebraska. So Henry Rayberg committed to Wyoming, kind of a tweener, and we talked about this before, Michael. He's one of those guys, if he's 6'5" or 6'2", 6'3", he's probably a Big Ten level guy. But these are the kind of players that Craig Bowl and the Mountain West, whatever league it is now, the Mountain West, they make a living off of. And there's no doubt Millard North is going to be a team that's going to have a chance to go deep with the talent they have this year.
I'm going to see him this week. He's playing Central this week, so I'm going to
be a good game.
No doubt. Appreciate it, Sean. We got early results from this week's survey on how you think Nebraska will close out Coach Rhule's second season. Right now, 8-4 winning, 45%. 7-5, 42%. 6-6, 8%. And that big number, 11-1 or 9-3, 5% of the people are confident that Nebraska can play really well over the last 6 games. Oregon moved up to 2 and is one of 3 Big Ten teams that occupied 3 of the top 4 sports spots in the AP poll after last week's carnage. In Big Ten play, an interesting note, the Huskers' 3 Big Ten opponents are 0-3 after playing Nebraska and losing those games by an average of almost 32 points per game. Indiana has moved up to 16 in the AP. This is the latest that they have been ranked that high since the COVID year in 2020. Looking at the top 25, joining Oregon in the top 5 is Penn State at 3. Ohio State falls to 4 after the late loss to the Ducks. Illinois is hanging around at 22, and Michigan is at 24. Let me just tell you, Michigan doesn't deserve to be in the top 25. I know what they did last year. I know they won a national championship. They're not a good team. Look at the teams that are playing them, and look at those teams losing. They're not a good team.
No, and they can't throw.
Right, at
and
all.
So when they play somebody really high level, it's going to be interesting. But you know how the poll, it's a reputation thing.
Sure.
And, Tennessee, has not played well. They kind of still get the respect. Miami has, almost lost. They should have lost Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
So I think for Nebraska, they've got to earn respect back. It starts this weekend.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of eyeballs watching Nebraska in Indiana.
Well, let's talk more about that game. Joining us now is Mike Niziolek from the Bloomington Herald-Times. Welcome, Mike. Did I come anywhere near close to saying your name correctly on that?
You got 100%. You did great.
Nice. Talk to us about 6-0 there in Bloomington. What's the feeling like out there?
Excitement. This is one of the biggest games, the last couple decades here. Obviously, they announced a sellout, only the first sellout since 2021. Big Noon Kickoff's going to be here. Fans are pumped for this one. You've kind of seen it kind of grow slowly here, and now I think fans are fully bought in terms of really believing in this thing. Obviously, second 6-0 start in program history, was the first team to qualify for a bowl, and they have some bigger goals here still under Curt Cignetti.
Mike, Nebraska fans are talking about Indiana hasn't played anybody yet this year through the first 6 games. What's kind of your rebuttal to that statement, and how do you think, what has Nebraska, who they've played compared to who Indiana has played through the first 6 games?
Yeah, I mean, Indiana, is not hiding the fact that their schedule set up well for Curt Cignetti in his first year. Their first 6 games, they played one of the, not just an FCS team, but one of the worst FCS teams in the country, a team that had lost 25 in a row before coming here. And so, I think there's been talk of that here in Indiana as well. But they've gone on the road and won 2 road games in the Big Ten. And Indiana's built up some style points. I think Michael mentioned that, this team is one of 2 teams in the country that hasn't trailed yet this season. Yeah. And so, I think that's kind of impressed people that even though maybe they're playing some lesser teams, that UCLA win looks worse every week, but still they went in there and dominated. And I think that's a hard thing to do. Only 2 teams have won out West this season in the Big Ten. Indiana's one of them. So, I think that, Indiana's played a light schedule so far in this back half. They will certainly have to prove themselves here with the series of stronger opponents.
Mike, the history of Indiana, it's in some ways similar to Nebraska in the sense that you guys are a basketball school and football is kind of the secondary sport. At Nebraska, basketball has to play second to football. How engaged, though, is this Hoosier fan base? Because we know what's coming around the corner. Basketball season is just a couple of weeks away from starting. With the start at being 6-0, Big Noon Kickoff, how engaged is this Hoosier fan base?
Yeah, Hoosier Hysteria here, their annual kind of football event is Friday, ironically. And so that's now sort of fighting for the attention or the spotlight this weekend. 2 of the final 4 home games have sold out already. Michigan was the other one that got announced this week. Limited tickets available for the other 2, Washington and Purdue. And so you might see them sell out 4 games in a single season, which hasn't been done here. And so at Memorial Stadium. So I think the fans have bought in. I think fans really like Curt Cignetti. I think they were really sort of, his bravado at the start. They may be a little worried that he wasn't going to be able to back it up, but he called his shots. He's basically, in December and January, he kind of laid out how this was all going to unfold. And he's been right. He kind of had a similar turnaround at Elon. He's had a blueprint and he's executed it here and turned around this roster very quickly. And so fans, I think they are excited and it's kind of uncharted territory. November games are going to matter here for football, and people won't be able to invest as much in basketball here over the next couple of weeks.
Mike, lastly, talk about Curtis O'Rourke And I loved him at Ohio, thought he was a really good quarterback there, but he's taking it to another level. Can you talk about what you've seen as his development's gone through these first 6?
Yeah, they valued with a lot of spots at quarterback specifically production over Prudential. So in the portal, they got a guy that had a lengthy resume of experience, and that's what Curt Cignetti loved about Curtis Rourke. He's run the 2-minute offense a bunch. He's been in these situations where he's been down a lot, where he's been up a lot, and he can do all that. They knew he could make all the throws, but I think the thing about that was important to them was that he's a veteran that there was no situation that could throw at him, even in the Big Ten, that would surprise him. And he's done that. He's been poised. He's really good pocket presence. Not necessarily the fastest guy, but I mean, if you watch their games, you see him 3 or 4 times escape out of the pocket, escape pressure, duck out of things, and he's just real savvy. And I think his arm, when you watch him, there's not a spot on the field that he can't throw to, but I think it's all that other stuff that has really separated him. He's run this offense with confidence, and he's got them humming along. I mean, obviously, if you look at the numbers, top 10 in most categories, and that's all, it starts with him.
Yeah, he's been great. Mike, we really appreciate the time. Enjoy the game this week.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys out there.
Of course, no game this past weekend, so we have no game day picture winner, but be sure to get online this Saturday and send us how you're watching the Indiana game with family and friends, rooting for an upset win, and you can get a Nebraska Public Media t-shirt. Also, social media. In the social media world, bye weeks can be rough on college football fans, but this meme is somewhat comforting to Huskers. During the bye week, these people miss Husker football. Oh, yes, definitely. No doubt about that. But I'm sure many of you did what Herbie did and mowed the grass for probably the last time this year as the weather has turned. I think it won't be long until Herbie has to do that inside Memorial Stadium. Can't wait for grass. That's going to be awesome.
No, it's going to be fantastic.
It's going to be really cool.
It's really good.
It's viewer time because we got viewer questions. Sean, you think that Nebraska will make a field goal over 30 yards the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, 30 yards, guys, isn't that far?
It's a mean question.
I mean, they'll be in that position.
Yeah, ball's at the 20.
Elvano has come back and started practice. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know. Will he travel is the question. And I think the snap is as big of an issue right now as the kick itself. I think they've got to get the snap down, then the hold.
Yeah, that's got to be a trust. I mean, that's the thing, too, as a kicker, you got to trust the process is done correctly. If your mind's not right, is this going to be a good situation? Man, you're set up for a failure right away.
So a question that Sean asked Bo earlier, was there somebody you want to see more of? Jay says Jalen Lloyd. Wants to see more of Jalen Lloyd, some more deep routes, things that we saw last year.
Yeah, again, you saw more of that last year, but that wide receiver core was decimated last year, so he had to play more. But yeah, you've seen him at times. You saw him a little bit in the Purdue game, saw him in the fake punt in the Rutgers game. Listen, there's weapons now, man. They have tons of options. With Barney coming to this mix, kind of a similar style of player. But I tell you what, you can utilize him, get him in the slot, somehow get him in those jet sweeps motion, orbit motion type of stuff. But he'd definitely be a guy I think would need to get the ball more.
One guy I'd like to see more is Carter Nelson. I mean, can they make him more than an opening script or gadget play guy?
Right.
Like, can they actually put him in and run plays with him versus kind of what his role is now, which I think it's a predetermined script or a gadget situation where we've seen him come in, because I do think he can help Nebraska. But that means taking probably Banks or Nayor off the field, or you put him in the slot and try to get a matchup like we saw him score on that touchdown.
Yeah, Indiana moves the ball around. I think they have 9 total receivers with more than 5 or more catches. What about Tommy Hill this week to help in that secondary?
Well, he's been practicing. So what does that mean? It's really hard to say. I still think you could see a scenario where Sierra Wright and Tommy Hill played together on the field. And would it make sense to put Sierra Wright on the field side since he's healthier and put Tommy on the boundary since his foot has given him some issues and just get your best guys out there? And then if you did that, would you move Marquise Buford to maybe Hartstug's spot? I mean, I think there's a lot of options they can play with. And I think this is a game where you're going to need all your best pieces in play to win.
Yeah, and they've got good players all over. Can you talk a little about that RPO and the responsibility that you have when you have a guy that's that good at it like Curtis Rourke?
Yeah, it's hard, and Bo kind of touched on it already. It's playing with eyes. You have to trust your eyes and have such good vision on that quarterback for what he does.
Right.
And then it's the ability to read it. There's just little intricacies of every offense. You just have little tells. And might take a play or two to figure out what that tell is, but once you see it and you can trust it, once you see that action, it's like boom, you take that one step forward, then you can retreat to get back into your coverage situation, zone, or potentially a man situation. But it's hard. They're going to test it. He's looking at that collapsing end or linebacker. MJ Sherman come off the edge, Prince Ball. He's looking at all that stuff, and if he's coming down, he's probably going to keep it and maybe toss it out to the slot or keep it himself on a QB keep game. But those are very, very hard situations to defend. But it's all about trusting your eyes, and trusting what you're seeing, and then go and make those plays.
Yeah, and Nebraska did well against Rutgers a couple times.
Yes.
They tried it. Burning question, Sean.
My burning question is, can Nebraska win a game on the road against a ranked team? I mean, just winning a game against a ranked team, period, but on the road. I mean, it'd be a kind of a program-changing moment this weekend.
Yeah, mine is it's turnovers. This one, Nebraska, they've been successful in limiting turnovers on offense, but creating turnovers defensively. I think for Nebraska to win this football game, they need to be +2. And they've been +2 a few times this year. They got to get +2, and I think they get the job done in Bloomington.
And my question is, can Nebraska protect Dylan Raiola? 33% pressure rate. His numbers have really dropped off when he's been pressured, when he's had a muddy pocket, dropped off dramatically. So can they protect him, and can he handle it when they're getting after him? Don't forget to head to the website, Facebook page, or X account and click on the prediction. Jay, Sean, and I will tell you exactly what to expect in the Indiana game. The next game against 6-0 Indiana Hoosiers is big noon at 11 a.m. on Fox, with coverage beginning at 9 a.m. And then on Tuesday night with Big Red Wrap-Up, we'll recap the IU game, and we'll be joined by former ESPN personality Jay Crawford to look forward to the Ohio State game. Of course, we'll be back live on World, Facebook Live, and YouTube at 7 p.m. And you can catch a re-air at 10 p.m. on Nebraska Public Media. Our special thanks to Nebraska President Dr. Jeffrey Gold, Bo Ruud, and Mike Niziolek. Jay Moore and Sean Callahan, I'm Michael Severe. We'll see you next week on Big Red Wrap-Up.